Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Today's video is all about the life and legacy of King Henry III. Now then, the story begins with his father, who is King John. So Henry III was the oldest son and then inherited the throne from his father, King John, and Henry III's mother was Isabella of Angoulême, King John's wife, of course. Now then, they had their child, Henry III, or then Prince Henry, and he was born on the 1st of October in 1207 at Winchester Castle. So he was born in Winchester in the year 1207. Now, not much is known about Henry III's childhood. Of course, back in the early 1200s, the records are not as accurate as, of course, would be today. But it is known he was looked after by a wet nanny in the southeast of England, roughly around Winchester where he was born. And he was very, very close indeed to his mother, but was not very close at all to his father, King John. Now, King John died in 1216, not too long after having his son, Henry III, and therefore, on the 19th of October in 1216, Henry III became King of England, aged only 9 years old. So a very young age, of course, to inherit the throne of England and be the ruler. So now that he's become king, we'll go through a Henry III key events timeline of his reign. He had his coronation not long after becoming king, as he was crowned on the 28th of October that same year, and here we can see a depiction of King Henry III being crowned, with the crown being placed on his head. Now then, as he was only 9 years old, for the first years of his reign, he ruled alongside two regents while he was young, and these regents were Hubert de Burgh, as we can see here, a depiction of him in stained glass, and William Marshal. And this is a more modern interpretation of what William Marshal may have looked like, and those two ruled alongside as regents with Henry III. Now, because of Henry III not being a full-powered king yet, in 1217 there was an attempted French invasion. They landed at Lincoln and at Dorset. We can see here Lincoln Castle, and here is Lincoln Cathedral, and these were used as strongholds and were very key and pivotal locations in holding, and here is Dover Castle, and these were all very important in battling off the French, never letting them make it inland. So the invasion was crushed. In 1220, work begins on Salisbury Cathedral. Henry III is known as the Builder King, as many great buildings were built in his reign. In 1222, a French insurrection was crushed again. This is by William de Burgh, and they were very successful in the early 1200s in staving off the French. Now then, in 1227, Henry III is old enough to take full control of England. So he no longer has regents, and Henry III himself is the most powerful man in England, of course, as he's now the sole ruler and king. Now, Hubert de Burgh was an advisor to the king until 1232, when he was dismissed by King Henry III and lost, of course, much of his power. In 1236, Henry III marries Eleanor of Provence, so his wife, of course, he married then in 1236 at the age of 29 years old. And then in 1237, Henry III signs the Treaty of York with the King of Scotland, then Alexander II, which defines a Scottish border. As we can see here, the Scottish border was agreed upon by both England and Scotland, defining this line between the two kingdoms. Now in the year 1240, Henry's Great Council is called Parliament for the first time, and of course we still use the word Parliament for the king's the king's state opening of Parliament. So it's still called Parliament after the years following 1240 and Henry III. In 1245, rebuilding takes place, repairs at Westminster Abbey, with Henry III laying down stones himself, the Builder King, once again, like I say. And then in 1264, there is the Barons' War, where the Barons rebel up against Henry III and actually conquer or defeat the forces of the Loyalists to Henry III, which results in Henry III himself being captured by some of the barons who have rebelled against his reign. And for 2 years, Henry III is imprisoned, but then in 1266, the barons turn against each other and kill de Montfort, who is the leader and advocated for the rebellion, and then, therefore, in 1266, Henry III is released and restored to his full powers as king after he's been released. In 1267, Llewellyn pays £20,000, a lot back then, for Henry III to recognise him as Prince of Wales. And speaking of money, there is a good change to the coinage of under Henry III. We can see here an example of a short cross, where the edges of the coin could be clipped, but here we can see a long cross penny, introduced in the reign of Henry III. We can see the long cross stretches to the edges of the coin in an attempt to prevent the coins from being clipped, and of course all the coins used at this time would have featured the portrait of King Henry III, and there he is, a facing bust. Now, Henry III had 9 children, as we can see on screen now, the most famous of which being Edward, who would of course be Prince Edward, and then later Edward I of England. Now, Henry III died in 1272, aged 65 years old, very good for the 1200s, and he reigned for 56 years and 19 days. An absolutely monumental reign, making him the longest reigning medieval monarch, the second longest reigning English king, and the 4th longest reigning monarch of England, all done in the 1200s when life expectancy was much lower. He was succeeded by his eldest son, King Edward I, who we can see here, known as Edward Longshanks, as he was very tall, but that was the new king after Henry III passed away. So there we are. Comment down below any extra information you have on Henry III. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon for some more coins in the future on Bits and Bobs. Bye for now.